Hi, I'm Shannon Anderson. I am a teacher. I've taught for 25 years. I'm also a children's book author. And today's recording is a little bit different than what I would normally do. It's on fundraising. One of the big projects I do in my classroom every year is a big publication project with my students where they each write their own book. I send it off to a company that makes them into a hardcover book so they can be published authors. But then I also send off their illustration to a company called Budsies who makes it into a stuffed animal that looks just like the drawing. It really is pretty awesome. Well, Budsies has publicized this and it has gone pretty viral. It went to the Today Show, Good Morning America, USA Today, all of these different positivity groups on different social media, which has been really cool, especially for my students. They're like so excited that they're on all of these things. And maybe you've seen some of them where I'm wearing this dress. They all get to draw their character on the dress. And what happened is I normally would have a publication party when our books and our Budsies come in. And since we couldn't do that this year with the pandemic, I went to each student's house and delivered the stuffed animals in person. Well, getting back to our topic of fundraising, one of the biggest questions I've been asked on all of the thousands of comments that have been coming in is, how are you affording to do this for your students? Because the Budsies are expensive, and that's not even counting the books. The dress I just buy myself. I just get a white dress on Amazon, usually around $25. It's worth the investment because it's a very special dress. When I go to keynote at different teaching conferences and things, I get to wear it. So I have lots of uses for these amazing dresses that the kids design themselves with their characters on it. But I've had some even mean comments like saying, if she has all this money, she should be using it on other things, or she must be independently wealthy. Well, I can assure you, I am not independently wealthy. As I said, I'm a teacher. My husband's a police officer. We don't make a ton of money. I'm putting a daughter through college. Another one's going to be going to college pretty soon. So no, we are not loaded in wealth. I seek grants. That's just the only way I can put it. I seek grants, I write grants, and I try to make things happen. I have had all kinds of cool projects that I've done in my classroom, but as you know, if you're a teacher watching this, it's not easy to fund those things. And so, some of the things I do fund myself, of course, or I'll fund a portion of it, but I'll ask for help because, education is something that everyone values. And so if you're asking in the right ways and for the right things, then usually people are willing to help you out. So I've had a lot of people ask me, well, how do you even start to write a grant? Where do you get these grants? And so you have to be resourceful. And sometimes you can get funding right through your own school that you don't even know about. For example, if you're a Title I school like we are, sometimes there are funds available through Title I for special projects if you can justify how it's meeting standards and how it is helping the students in some way. On the other end of the spectrum, you might have like high ability funds or gifted talented funds that, again, you can show and propose a special project that's going to help those identified students. And in those ways, those special services can be funded through, or at least partially funded through a grant like that. Also through the school, you might have something where like you have a grade level fund where each teacher gets a small amount that they can use on their classroom that year. You could allocate that for that. Sometimes there are textbook rental extra funds. So sometimes they'll collect like a fee to help with those little things that might be something every student in your classroom would benefit from. I know in the past we've had those where we were allowed to buy something that was a consumable item or something the kids were going to get to keep to be able to use those funds for those things, like whiteboards for every student or something, a subscription that they're all going to be able to use that's going to benefit them. So those are just different school routes you can go. You can also go through, if you call it PTA or PTO, they will often help teachers out in some way. Sometimes they give each teacher a certain amount each year to help them. Other times, like this past year, our PTO was generous enough to provide mini grants. So if you did have a special project like the Budsies or something else, then you could apply for that grant and explain again how this project is going to be amazing for your students, and then, take a chance you might get it. And that's the thing about writing all of these grants is you're taking a chance. And so you have to learn to appeal to these people and what their purposes are. So if they are strongly in favor of funding educational activities, then you want to make sure that you're showing how it is educational for them. If it's something through the arts, like if there's a foundation or some place that supports the arts and you wanted to do something like this, you're going to want to appeal to the arts and creativity part of the project. And I've done grants for all different things. I haven't just done them for the Budsies and these books. I have purchased a stage for my classroom. That was one of my big projects last year. I wanted to have a little stage that my kids, when they're presenting information or when they're sharing something, that they could get up on the stage and they could have that little presence, and everyone is looking up to them. And, you know, when we do little celebrations for someone, I'll have them hop up there. When they master their multiplication facts, I have them get up there and we all applaud them. And I have a big deal when I put the medal over their neck. So it was really just, you know, a dream to have a stage in my classroom. I thought that would be really cool. And so I was able to do some fundraising to do that. Now, I paid for part of it, but again, what I paid wasn't, you know, at least I didn't have to pay for the whole thing. I was able to get help for that. And that's another thing. You can do fundraising things. And I'll share at the very end of this my very favorite way to do fundraising. And it's a great thing where the kids can help out too. But some of the things that come to mind that I have used are things like Donors Choose, GoFundMe. One I haven't used, but I've heard good things and I've heard good experiences from people that have, is a Kickstarter program. So if you wanted to do something like that. Now, keep in mind all of these things, you're going to do some background work for that because you're going to be presenting to the public basically why they should fund you, why this is important, something about your school. You're going to be taking pictures and videos to post to go along with it as you're running your campaign. But those can be viable options as well. Now, as far as grants go, it really depends on where you live, what you have access to. There are some, of course, state, federal, big grants that you can go for. But there are also local things that might be only local to your community. Like, for instance, there's a sorority in my town that has given me many grants for several different projects that I've done. There's a local foundation in my town that funds grant opportunities for 2 different counties in my state. So if you can look for foundations that do things like that. There are even like specifically education grants for projects. Like there's a Walmart education grant. I'm not positive, but I bet there's probably like a Target grant and other big companies and businesses that would support education and have the money and resources to be able to do that. So it's a matter of going to their service desk and asking, do you offer grant opportunities for teachers or for educational opportunities, things like that? Because you can always ask and they can say no, but you could ask and they might say, here's an application and you can fill it out. I've gotten a Walmart grant before. There are also places that might be in your town that do roundups. So for example, there's an electric company in our town that does Operation Roundup. So people can elect to round up their utility bills, and then that little bit of extra from each person adds up. And they give a lot of grants out to our community, and many of them are for educators, because everyone knows that the educators need the money, and that is a good investment because it's investing in their future, especially if it's in your own community, because you're supporting the kids that are going to grow up and hopefully be part of your community and be the leaders. And because of the experiences they're funding, they're going to be more well-rounded people to contribute to your community. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I might not have mentioned, but the biggest ones I can think of are the businesses, the philanthropies like sororities, things like that, and just going ahead and applying for them. Now, I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't know the first thing about writing a grant. Well, if you've ever filled out an application before for a job, which if you're a teacher, you have, it's just like that. You just fill it out. So most of them have basic components. They will have like, what is your project proposal? Like they'll want a catchy title, and then they're going to want to know like a little summary. They don't have a whole lot of time, and they're probably going through lots of proposals. So you want to make it as user-friendly for them as possible. Get straight to the chase. What is it you're asking for and why? Most of the time they're going to ask for a budget, like, why do you need this amount of money? Well, because I'm buying this many of this item and each unit costs this. And I also need this. I have written grants to be able to have Spanish camps, writing camps, poetry camps, creative minds camps. I've done all kinds of camps through grants, and I just have to itemize, this is how much I'm going to need for this supply. I want to give every kid a poetry journal to be able to write in all week long, things like that. And so you're going to want to make sure that you know ahead of time what all of your expenses are. And oftentimes when they'll either call you for an interview, or it might just be approved or not approved. But oftentimes when I've gotten called and they want to ask and clarify a few things, they will ask the big question, well, if it's not fully funded, if we gave you half of the money, would you still do this camp, or would you still be able to do this project and seek the rest of the funding somewhere else? And of course your answer is yes, thank you, because any amount helps, of course. And so any way that you can show that you are also seeking other ways to find money is good. So a lot of my applications that I've filled out will say things like, have you sought out other grant opportunities? And you want to be seeking out other grant opportunities. You don't want it to be where I'm just throwing this whole big amount on this person and hoping that they're going to just fund the whole thing. You want to show that you're willing to work hard to make this happen because you're passionate about it, and you really want to provide this opportunity for your kids. Okay, so I think I've covered everything on what kinds of grants I've used and the different fundraisers you can do, except for this last one. So this is my favorite one. I feel like it's meaningful, and I feel like people are very willing to support it because of what it is. And what it is a readathon. So I've done this one many years. And what you do is at the very beginning of the year, which we usually start mid-August, sometimes even before mid-August. And so what I do is I set it for the month of September. And so I print out a calendar, I make it nice and cute and big enough squares that, the calendar is pretty much the size of the page. And then I print out an explanation, and I print out little pledge sheets. And so what it is the kids are going to go around and ask family and friends for pledges for how many hours they read in the month of September. Now, if you think about it and you do the math, if a child reads 20 to 30 minutes a night, that can add up to quite a few hours. And so people that are pledging, I usually put on my pledge sheet, I will give $1 an hour. I will give $5 per hour the child reads. I'll give $10 per hour the child reads. Sometimes you have a grandparent that'll say, I'll give $20 for every hour my grandchild reads. And so then when they do the reading, so that's the other benefit of this particular fundraiser, is you're encouraging and motivating kids to read, and their parents are encouraging them to do it too, so that they can have a good amount of time recorded on their calendar. And so then when the month is over, they go back to the people that pledged them and say, hey, I read 5 hours and you pledged $5 an hour. So thank you so much for sponsoring me. And if you can send the $25 by this date, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much. And usually I'll do like a class picture with the kids each holding a letter of thank you, and we'll have all the kids sign it and then run it off in color. So you've got this great picture of all the kids holding up thank you and all of their signatures. And then maybe a little explanation on there too, as, thank you so much for supporting our cause. This is what we're using it for, which they should know ahead of time what it was being used for in the first place when you're asking for the pledges, of course. But that's just a nice way to do a quick thank you and to show that you appreciate them, because, down the road, if you do it again, or if you get one of their siblings and have that readathon again, you want them to have that be a good experience and have them have a happy feeling coming away from it that they supported that. So again, that's my favorite fundraiser. And I often will use that at the very beginning of the year, because then I have some funding for my classroom. That usually what I use it for is I have a class shirt made every year. I let the kids help me design it, and they all get to sign the shirt and all of that. And I send it off to a local man that does all of my t-shirt work for me for all my books and everything. He's wonderful. But anyway, so it funds every child getting the class shirt, and it funds, usually we take one field trip a year. It helps fund that, like at least part of it, if not all of it, depending on how well the fundraiser goes, things like that. But one other thing that I've thrown in, I've noticed that people really seem to go for things that they have an opportunity to also win something. And so another thing that you can do is go to local businesses and explain what the cause is for. Like, this is for every student in my class to get a class shirt and to pay for them to go on a field trip this year. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to donate a door prize, and, you know, we would thank you publicly for your sponsorship. And so that way, when you're doing this fundraiser for the readathon, you can also, you know, entice people that, you know, if you pledge at this level, you know, at $5 per hour or more, then you get entered into this door prize drawing for fabulous door prizes from local businesses. And then that's pretty cool too, because you get to give out some prizes and spread some joy to those that were giving to your classroom and being so kind. But also it might entice them to give at a higher level than rather doing $1 an hour for the reading or whatever. So that's just an idea. I've also done mathathons, but we've done it like for charity. But, you know, it breaks my heart. And the reason I started doing all of this is because I am a Title I school, and I do have students that can't afford to pay for the field trip. I've had kids where, you know what, they are getting, you know, they haven't applied for the free lunch like they probably should have. That's on their parents, not them. And they're getting the cheese sandwich because their lunch bill is so high. And I have secretly paid that before. You know, we do those things. You don't want to have, you know, a class t-shirt and there are 4 kids that can't afford it and they just don't get one. I would never do that. And so that's why I started doing the readathon, so that every kid could have a class shirt, every kid could have their the fundraiser pay for their field trip, and to not have to feel, you know, like they're less than, or that, you know, it causes strain at home because they have to ask for this money. The readathon seems to be a great solution for that. And the grants are great solutions for things in the classroom. I have funded big things with this. The Budsies project is not a cheap project, but it is so amazing. If you haven't seen any of the videos of the reveals, like normally I wouldn't be delivering them house to house. Normally we would have a reveal in the classroom and they each get to pull out the stuffed animal one at a time, and I video their reactions. You can see, if you go to my website, shannonisteaching.com, you can see, I think I have 1 or 2 reveal videos on there, and it's just priceless. And, you know, what are we in this for? We're in this for the kids, to provide memories and fun experiences, and we want them to know that we care about them and we love them, and that's why we do all this. It is a lot of work, I know, but man, is it worth it. So as one of my book's titles is, Go the Extra Smile, because, you know, I always live by, you know, if you provide an uncommon, wonderful experience for the kids, then they're going to provide an uncommon level of engagement and appreciation for you. And if the kids are having a great time in your classroom and making good memories and looking forward to coming to school, you're going to have that same experience. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to look forward to coming to school too. So again, if you go to my website, shannonisteaching.com, the first time you visit, a pop-up should come up, and if it doesn't, then I think I have one at the bottom of every page that you can sign up for my newsletter, because that's the whole reason I'm making this video right now. Is I had people asking about fundraising and grant writing, and so I'm making this video for my email newsletter. These are the kinds of things that I provide in that, so that I can give advice and help out people when they're asking me questions. I feel like this is an easy way to help a lot of people at once. You can spread it around to your school. I would love to have lots of people jump on there, and it's just a wonderful community of teachers and some writers. I give tips on writing, of course, because I love writing and have written a lot of books. So yeah, this is getting kind of long. I'm going to let you go. So thanks for listening, and subscribe, and I hope to see you on another video.